Hi, my name is William Dean, and for my presentation, I'm going to be discussing women's rights and equality. So, for the base of my presentation, I will be discussing mainly Tipper Gore and Hillary Clinton. I will talk about how these polarizing figures in American history were able to make an impact on the ability of women to make even more of an impact. I also want to speak about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Brie Larson, and Ellen DeGeneres as more powerful women that are helping the advancement of our American culture. Now, women have constantly been scrutinized throughout American history, but over the past 20 years, it has really made some advancements. I want to look at how women's role in America has changed from the 80s and 90s to now, and from the late 80s and 90s. It was one of the most imperative times for women in history. During the late 80s to 90s, it was pretty common for women to hold positions of power in the workplace. It was not happening everywhere, but for some women, being a manager of a CEO being a manager or a CEO was not that out of the ordinary. Comparing the 80s to the 60s, women must have felt that they were really gaining steam for the fight for equal rights. This is true, but many of those women were unaware of the problems that would soon surface in the future. Now, women today still have plenty of work to do, and the other people that fight alongside them, to make them truly equal. Um, the women that I want to reference are showing that these problems can be stopped. Women still have to deal with the constant scrutiny in the workplace, such as things as sexual harassment, equal pay, and rights. These things have been brought to attention due to the large platforms that we have because of social media, but social media has also created its own types of problems. Social media is constantly objectifying women and judging them based on their looks. This also influences the next generation, convincing them that there is a right and wrong way to look and live. The fight for women's equality is not over, but as time has went on, it has gotten better and better. Now, first, I'd like to highlight the two main women that I'll be talking about in this project, which is Hillary Clinton and Tipper Gore. Both are very famous wives of very famous politicians, but both have very strong resumes of their own. This part of the problem, though, is that they're both identified as the wives of very famous politicians. They should be known as their own people, but they are identified as such due to the media and because of American culture. Tipper was most famous for co-founding the PMRC, which is the Parents Music Resource Center. Tipper identified the problem which parents were not able to monitor what their children were listening to and were being exposed to. As music was becoming more open and vulgar, something had to be changed so parents can help protect their children from things that can be traumatizing and harmful. As we know today, music has become even more vulgar, and it's important for parents that do not want their children to listen to this type of music to be able to stop it from happening. As a musician myself, I do not believe in restricting artistic expression, but I do agree with parents being able to raise their kids how they want. Tipper Gore's pursuit for the explicit stickers that we all know of today just shows just how much of an impact a woman from the 80s was able to make around then. She was able to create a movement and get others behind her, whether they were male or female, because it was a cause that needed to be represented. She had a very famous court case against famous musicians such as Dee Snider and Frank Zappa. This may have been a case that was created around music, but the victory of the PMRC was also a huge win for women everywhere. It showed that women can and should be able to handle the important decisions that will have large implications on the future of American culture. She also showed that just because her husband holds a large amount of power, she didn't need him to get this done. He himself had a platform that helped elevate her, but once she was at that platform, she was able to do what she wanted and use her power for good. Next, I want to talk about Hillary Clinton. She's, of course, made incredibly large amount of strides for women's rights and equality. As everyone knows, Hillary Clinton was the first female to run for president. She may have lost the election, but she did something that no woman has ever done in history. Clinton herself has an incredible resume to this point, and maybe more recognizable than her husband by the time that they're both dead. So she has been involved in politics for a very long period of time, and even before she met Bill Clinton. She graduated from Yale and was a congressional councilwoman for a few years before she met Bill. Once again, she was able to make incredible movements and elevate herself to a platform using the fame and power of her significant other. But once again, once she was at that platform, she was able to take off and ascend to even further heights than anyone could have ever expected. Now, her journey through the presidential race shows just how much a woman deserves to be in contention for the United States president, just as much as a man does. I do believe soon that we'll have another women run for president and hopefully win. There are, of course, some biases that get in the way of this, and that is basically because of our culture. Many Americans feel that other nations will look down on America if a woman is the country's leader. There's a bias that will die out with time, and I feel that time will be the biggest factor in impact on women's rights rather than anything else. Um, Many of the ideas are built into our society and culture, but are starting to be broken as more of the youth starts to get older. As time advances, ideas will slowly change. The past 70 years have been an upward trend for women in U.S. history. I personally think that the only way to solve the solution of women's struggle for equality is to change the stigma about it. And the only way for the culture to change is to develop and build around these ideas. That takes time and patience. That's the problem. And people have to continue to voice what they feel is right and necessary over time to create this change. This brings me to talk about Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, who is a young politician from New York and is constantly making headlines for her smart and engaged work. I believe that she will have an incredibly huge impact on the future of women because of the way she holds herself and commands respect from others. I've spoken to a few of my female friends about politics, and they all love what she's about. She's also very young, which helps her connect with the younger generation, which will get them more into politics, which is very important. Um, she also gets a lot of attention due to her looks, as she is a very pretty woman, but she makes sure that that is not the focus. It does help that she's attractive because people are naturally drawn to that, but it wouldn't have mattered what she looked like because of the work she's doing. Um, I mentioned the earlier problem with the objectification of women's beauty and bodies in general. In today's social media age, everyone is under a microscope, especially celebrities. While Brie Larson was shooting the movie Captain Marvel, many people felt that it was more important to focus on her physique rather than the movie itself and her acting ability. There was a picture that surfaced on the internet of Brie Larson in her costume, and people called her out for having a very flat butt. This outraged fans enough that people were demanding a costume change or even a change of actress. Brie Larson made sure that people knew that the outfit didn't matter, that people shouldn't be staring at her butt, people should be worrying about the movie rather than what she looks like. So that was very nice to see that someone was so not focused on what everyone else was focused on. Um, she also talked about how having the role itself of Captain Marvel was very important for her and women in general because Captain Marvel is the most powerful character in the Marvel universe. Um, Even though she does not really have any of these powers, it helps portray the idea that women deserve more power. She spoke out about how the role was not for her, but for women everywhere. She's also the first female to have a solo superhero movie within the current Marvel universe, which was a very big deal at the time. This allows other paths to be open that will allow women to become stars in these types of roles. After the success of her movie, there's been discussions that there will be a female-only Marvel movie, like a female Avengers. Once again, as time keeps moving forward, people in America have been more progressive with women's rights and power, even though it may not always seem like it. Lastly, I just quickly want to mention Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen has been involved in television for a long time, and as a gay woman, has paved paths for people everywhere, not just women, but for anyone that is struggling and with their own situation. She showed that you can overcome anything, and you don't have to worry about what other people think as long as you can do what you need to do and get what you need to do done. In conclusion, many women have showed just how much of an advancement that we've made over the years. People like Tipper and Hillary have showed just how much power a woman can have once they can rally people around them. Um, they've both shown that there is no reason a man should be considered any more capable of a leader just because of his gender. The other women I mentioned have showed that anything is possible for women if they are willing to work towards it. That goes for anyone as well. They've also made it apparent how much women are scrutinized in society by their looks and sexual orientation. This is even polarized. This is polarized even more today because of social media that we have. There are many women on Instagram that constantly objectify themselves, and they say that it is what they want to do with their bodies. This is also their right, but it makes the fight for women even harder because everyone is seeing this. It's constantly in everyone's face. Um, and it may be easier if some women didn't portray themselves as a sex symbol rather than just people. Um, when Since social media is everywhere, when something is in someone's face, it's going to be the thing that's on their mind, and that's the biggest problem with today's society is all the pictures, all the advertising, and everything that's going on to objectify women and make them seem like symbols of sex rather than just people. And of course, there's no way to create equality overnight. And the biggest thing that will solve this problem is time. As culture keeps progressing, our culture will change. And I feel that women will be accepted even more if we stay on the current path that we're on. And they will have much more power. They will be completely equal to men, and everything will be better.